Welcome to day 30 of 30 days of Photoshop. Today we're doing a final project involving a lot of different blending modes to add lighting effects to our subject in Photoshop. Hello and welcome back to 30 Days of Photoshop. My name is Aaron Nace. Today we bring a wonderful end to our series. I really hope you've been enjoying 30 Days of Photoshop up until now, and we're ending this with a bang. We got a really fun project today. We're going to be bringing in an image of our subject and then a lot of different light-based photos that we're going to be using blend modes to help this mix all together and create a really beautiful effect. Let's jump in. So here we are in our sample images. Don't forget, you can download all this totally free on PHLEARN.com. So we're going to start off with our subject. We'll right click, we're going to say open with, and then we're going to go down to Photoshop 2025. Boom, boom, boom. Cool image to start with. This inspired me. I really liked the magenta and the blue, and I thought, cool on this background, but we can do a lot more interesting things with this image. So if you guys are taking this type of photograph, you can always find interesting ways to make it a little bit more artistic, enhance this image through Photoshop. So that's what we're doing. We're going to go back into our Finder window here, and I'm going to take all these different light tricks. Again, you guys can download all these totally free. Just click the link right down below. We're going to click and drag them into Photoshop, and click on this checkbox here, or just hit enter. There we go, and it's going to bring all these in as smart objects. And it's just a bunch of layers here, and you're going to see just how easy this is. Now, a lot of the time when you're doing lighting effects, you're going to have a light just like this on a dark background. So you can see we have a light area on a dark background. And if I simply change this layer blend mode from normal, we're going to go down to where it says screen. Well, let's take a look at that. Let's just make everything else invisible for now. Boom, set this to screen, and all of a sudden you have an interesting lighting effect. Now, this will happen quite a bit where you're going to see the edge of this image here, this light 06. You're going to see the edge of that, but that's okay. Basically, what screen does is it makes the lighter pixels visible and the darker pixels invisible. So here at the edge, this is simply not dark enough to be completely invisible. So what we're going to do, being that this is a smart object, I can just simply hit Control or Command L, and that's going to bring a levels adjustment directly onto this layer. Traditionally, you don't want to do that with a regular layer. However, this is a smart object, which means I'll be able to change this at any time. So again, if I want to make my darks disappear, I just need to make them a little darker. So I can do that right over here with my levels. So let's just grab our input level from the left to the right. I click and drag just like that. And look at that, almost like magic, it disappears. We're left with the lighting effects and we're hit OK. Okay, I love it. So we have this light 06. You can see it's a smart object, which brings in a smart filter that I can turn off and on. I can double click here on my levels and I can change this level set anytime. Only available with a smart object. Fantastic. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is our really, really fantastically good tool called Select Subject. And this now does cloud-based processing. Let's click on our background layer, and we're just going to go to Select Subject. Boom. It's going to do a great job. Now, don't worry about if everything else is visible. It's just going to do it based on a layer that you click on. So with that Select Subject, we have a selection here active. I'm going to go back to this light 06, and I'm going to click here on my layer mask icon. Okay, and that's going to make it only visible where my subject is visible. Now we're going to talk about just a couple of things here, the layer and the layer mask relationship. Right now, the layer and the layer mask are chain linked together. So if I were to grab my layer and go to my move tool here and try to move one or the other, well, that's actually kind of cool. I, do kind of like that. Basically, you can see it's going to move the layer and the layer mask at the same time. Okay, I might come back to that effect because I did like that. However, if I unlink that, okay, now I can move just the layer and the layer mask is going to stay in the same place. Or I can click on the layer mask and just the mask is going to move while the layer stays in the same place. Okay, now oftentimes you're going to click on your layer mask icon just like we did here, and you're going to maybe get the opposite of what you want. So really easy, you can simply click here on your layer mask. You can see black is invisible, white is visible. It makes sense. Black, it's not showing up. White, it is showing up. You can click on this layer. You can hit Control or Command I to invert it. Or since you're on your mask, make sure your contextual taskbar is visible. Go to Window and then down to Contextual Taskbar to make sure that is visible. Click here where it says ... and we're going to go to Invert Mask. There we go. We're going to invert the mask. And now this is basically showing up behind our subject. How cool is that? So again, I can click here on the mask itself and move just the mask if I wanted, or I can click here on the layer and move just the layer. And this makes a little bit more sense, right? So now the mask stays in the same place. I can move the layer around and have fun with it. I can hit Control-Command-T for transform. We can scale this larger or smaller. We can move it anywhere we want to. Let's put it right about there for now. This is going to be a really nice way to start our composite journey. Okay, what we're doing here is having fun. There's no wrong way to do this. Literally just adding light streaks to this image. Okay, let's go to the next image in our series. I'm going to turn this on, okay, and we'll just bring that to the top. Hold Control-Command and then click on the close bracket. Again, here we're going to change our layer blend mode from normal. We're going to change this down to screen, which is right up here. Okay, now here's set to screen. You're going to see it's visible over top of my entire image. Let's hit Control-Command-L just like we did before, and I'm going to take my darks and make them a little bit darker. Fantastic. We'll hit Control-Command-T for transform. I'm going to scale this up a little bit. There we go. And now we have this interesting, like, kind of red glow around my image. Okay, we're going to see how all these play together. So there's no right or wrong answer. That's really important to remember. All right, next, let's go ahead and choose this image. Again, I'm going to change the blending mode from normal to screen. I do like this image. I think it's looking really cool. I want to put it behind our subject. Now, earlier, we went through the whole select subject, create a layer mask game. We don't need to do that again. We already have this layer here with the layer mask on it that we want, okay? I'm gonna click on this icon here, which will compact our filters adjustments. If I wanna copy this layer mask from this layer to the other layer, okay? Basically move it onto this other layer, make this light looks like it's underneath our subject. All I have to do is hold Alt or Option and click and drag from one layer to another, boom, and there we go. Now this light effect is behind our subject. How cool is that? Okay, maybe we have an effect like this. Let's change this from normal to screen as well. I'm gonna hit Control-Command-T for transform, and let's go ahead and scale this up here. I want this to kind of mimic the lights that we have here in the background. There we go. Totally different photographs, but if you scale it up and kind of move it into the right place, let's hold Alt or Option. There you go. And you can see this kind of like mimics the same patterns that we have there as well. All right, we have this other image, and you can see we're just kind of having fun and adding these on as layers and layers. Let's change this from normal down to screen. Don't forget, at any point in time, by the way, let's say you do like something like this. Let's hit Control-Command-T on this one. Let's say you like something like this and you're like, that actually looks cool. Let's hit Control-Command-L for levels and bring that up. And you're like, you know what, this does look pretty cool. Let's find where this other photograph was ending. Oh, I didn't realize it ended there. Let's hit Control-Command-T and make it a little bit bigger. Okay, back to my original point. Let's say you find something like this and you're like, oh, that is pretty cool. I do like it, but maybe I don't want it to just look like white like this. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more interesting. You can actually use levels adjustments to change your colors as well. So let's hit Control-Command-L on this layer. Again, this is just the layer with the light streaks. Here with the channel, we've set this to RGB, which is going to adjust your lights or your darks, okay? Let's hold Alt or Option and click on Reset. However, if you go to your different color channels, I could go to my red channel here and click and drag this icon from the right to the left, and it's going to now pull the reds out of the highlights and make them darker. Now I'm getting this interesting kind of cyan color. I could go to my green channel and do the same thing here, and now it's going to push it towards magenta, okay? I could go to my blue channel and pull this. It's going to add a little bit of yellow into there. Okay, something like that looks kind of cool. Let's hit OK. So the idea is we started off, I can turn these filters off. I started off, you know, with an image that just looked like this, just a normal old image here. Set this to screen blend mode and then put a couple levels adjustments on it, and it looks totally different. We changed the color, we changed the light level, we changed a lot about that. And I can still go, let's hit Control-Command-T, let's try flip this vertically here and hit enter and see, you know, maybe we like that a little bit more. Let's hit Control-Command-T, let's flip this around this way and see about holding Shift and stretching that up and bringing it over there. Maybe we like this a little bit more. You know, maybe I like it over there. And I'm gonna hit Control-Command-J. Let's hit Control-Command-T. By the way, Control-Command-J will duplicate a layer. Control-Command-T will transform. I'm gonna flip this to the other side. So let's hit flip this horizontal and vertical and hit enter. And now I'm gonna move this and put it over there. How cool is that? So I have now these light streaks coming from the right-hand side and from the left-hand side. So we have a very similar effect now coming from both sides of this. There we go. We have this other light here. Let's hit Control or Command, close bracket. I'll just bring that all the way to the top. And we're going to change this from normal down to screen, just like we did before. Controller Command L for our levels, and let's bring up our black point just a little bit. Let's hit Controller Command T and transform this and put it into space. Again, something a little bit in front of our subject like that kind of looks cool. Don't forget, you can duplicate. Controller Command J to duplicate, Controller Command T for transform. Let's flip this vertically now and see about something, you know, maybe I want something over here. Let's hit Controller Command T, flip that horizontally. There we go. And that's looking pretty cool. So we have all of these different layers now that we can really just kind of work with and duplicate and change and kind of move in and out of our image and decide how we'd like this to actually be visible. You know, this one, if you want it to be in front of your subject, to hold Shift and click on that layer mask, and all of a sudden this image is in front of your subject instead of behind your subject. And maybe I like it there a little bit better. I don't know, kind of like looks cool. I like how it's integrating with my image a little bit more. Okay, so all of these different layers, we're having fun and just you're really using Photoshop like a playground at this point. Let's hit Controller Command J to duplicate that. I'm going to shift click on the layer mask. Remember earlier we kind of brought this here and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool if we go to our layer mask and I invert that. Okay, something like this. And then if I move, let's go ahead and just click there. And then I kind of move this. I was like, that's kind of cool actually. Let's go ahead and unlink the chain link there and see about, you know, moving this. All right, something like there. I'm just kind of having fun. I have a few different ideas of what I want to do, but you know, having fun. I mean, that's a big part of why we do this, right? Fantastic. Let's go ahead and bring that back up there. This is set to screen at the moment. You can change this from normal. You could change something like soft light if you wanted. You could change it to overlay if you wanted. You can really just have a lot of fun with this and do whatever you want. There we go. You know what? I'm going to do a different idea. Let's go ahead and take that and pop it in the trash. What I'd like to do is duplicate our subject. So let's go back to our background layer. I'm going to go to select subject here. And next, we're going to hit Controller Command J to duplicate our subject, you can see, onto a new layer. So now I have another version of my subject. This time, we're going to play a little bit. I'm going to double click here on my layer. And here in our layer style, we're going to go to where it says Advanced Blending. We have our channels, and red, green, and blue are checked at the moment. But if I uncheck any of these, we get some really interesting results. So now it's just showing us the red channel, or just the green channel, or just the blue channel, or the red channel and the blue channel. So we can have a lot of fun here by creating different looks throughout our images. All right, that looks pretty cool, right? So this is basically like a duplicate of our subject now that I can kind of place around there, and it just adds a little bit more interest to this image as a whole. Now I like this effect. Let's put a little bit of a blur on there. So let's go ahead and go to this layer. We're going to go to filter. We're going to convert this for a smart filter. Let's do that. There we go. Now when I did that convert to a smart filter, I lost that effect that I had, right? Let's double click here again, and you're going to see I lost that effect, and now it's still showing up with like still the red channel, the green channel, blue channel. I had to go back and redo that. That's okay. But now that it's a smart layer, I can go to filter, I can go to blur, and I can go to motion blur. And I'm just going to give this a little bit of a motion blur, something like that. Looks kind of interesting, right? So it's almost like we have a light effect coming from our subject. Look at that. I like this sort of thing. I just think it's cool. Let's hit Controller Command J. I'm going to hit Controller Command T and duplicate this and then transform and make it really large. And then, you know, kind of put the same thing here as well. Ooh, that's looking a little spooky. Not gonna lie. I like the one coming out for a face, but now that I make this other face really big, it's we're entering into spooky territory. I don't want it to look creepy. Yeah, this is looking like a ghost whispering in her ear or something like that. Never mind. I don't want it to look like that. Okay, well, this is looking really cool. Now, if I make this visible and invisible, it's looking really cool. It darkened up my subject's face a little bit, okay? I do like that effect, but how about we just pop a layer mask on this layer here? Let's hit B for our brush tool and just paint that a little bit invisible for my subject's face, just so I can see her face a little bit better. That's more like it. Okay, this is looking great. Now I want to jump into Camera Raw and kind of finish this out. I want this top part to be a little bit darker there as well. So let's go ahead and grab one of these layers. Now here's a cool thing. Let's go to this light 01. Okay. Now I'm going to just change this back from screen to normal here. Okay. Let's say I want to do something dark up on the top right. I'm going to change this from normal. We're going to go down to multiply instead of screen. And multiply is the opposite. Multiply shows up the darks and does not show up the lights. But now here on this layer, I'm going to hit Controller Command I to invert this layer. So now I'm showing up the darks, but I've inverted it. And now I've got this interesting thing I can work with. Let's hit Controller Command T. I'm going to flip this vertically and hit Enter. And now I've got this interesting little dark patch that I can put up there. And maybe it's not the right color. Maybe you don't like that. That's okay. You can simply click here on your layer and you can hit Controller Command L just like we did before. Let's go to our red channel and start working around with our reds. See from the right and from the left there. Let's go to our green channel. Let's pull this over here. All right, not a huge change there. Let's go to our blue channel and pull that change there. All right, I think that's looking a little bit better just in terms of our colors. Fantastic. And there we go. Just a nice subtle color little thing. Of course, you could use gradients and things like that. I just think it's fun to use actual photographs for these lighting effects. Okay, now this is looking pretty good all in all. I do like our effect. Again, here's where we started and where we're at right now. Definitely like a lot of fun stuff going on here. Let's do another duplicate. I'm going to go to your background layer. Let's go to select subject again. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit Controller Command J and bring that over top of this other color subject there. And then just change this from normal down to lighten. Where are you, lighten? You're hiding from me today. Okay, there we are. So I'm going to set this to lighten, and this is going to be for her face. So let's just make sure, because this other layer, remember how we had this light streak on our other layer? But if I hold shift, it kind of did that to her face, which I actually think it's cool, but it did make her face a little bit dark. But now if I put this lighten layer back over top of it, there we go. That should do it. Fantastic. I just wanted her face a little bit lighter, basically. All right. Well, this is looking great. We're almost done here. Again, we're having fun. So like there's no right or wrong way to do this sort of thing. But what I would like to do is go into Camera Raw to bring all this together. So I'm going to go to the very top of my layer stack. We're going to create a new layer here. I'm going to go to Image, down to Apply Image. There we go. Let's hit OK. And now we're going to go into Camera Raw. So we have a regular layer. Let's go to Filter, convert this for Smart Filters. Anytime you use a filter, it's a great idea to convert for Smart Filters first. Now we're going to go to Filter and then down to Camera Raw Filter. All right. Now here, we're going to go into our optics, and I'm going to go ahead and add a bit of a vignette around the edges. I like that. I'm going to go into my masking, and we're going to create a radial gradient right here from the center, drag out, and we're just going to make that exposure a little bit brighter. It's going to help our subject to be a little bit brighter and our background just a little bit darker. All right, I'm going to bring up our color. We're going to go increase the saturation there as well. All right, I think that's looking great. We're going to go into our effects, and I'm going to add a little bit of grain to this image, and I'm going to go to our lens blur. Now the lens blur, we're going to go ahead and click on apply. I want to add lens blur to this. Look how cool that looks. But in this case, I want to just paint in my focus and paint in my blur. So I'm going to have it be more in focus right around our subject. Okay, there we go. So just kind of painting this in, and I'm going to paint in my blur. So it's going to be blurry kind of wherever I decide. And this just kind of help these light effects kind of like integrate with the final photo a little bit more. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and remove off of our lens blur. There we go. And take a look at that before and after. So the before, you can see subject looks great. All the images look really good. Here in the after, it's kind of integrating into a lens blur and just kind of creating a more interesting composite, in my opinion, in general, especially as it blurs with these lighting effects and our subject. You can see those blurring together. Really helps it look a lot more photographic, like this effect was done in camera. Even though we know it was not, it looks more like it was done in camera because of how the interaction between our subject, especially like when you look at this area here, you know, the before, this is kind of like pretty obviously a Photoshop job. Here in the after, start to do some things like this. Really cool, right? This lighting effects is like, oh, that kind of looks like it was actually done in camera. You get a little bit more like, hey, how did you do that? Let's go back here. I'm just going to go back to the same mask that we were in earlier, and let's just bring our exposure up just a little bit brighter, our shadow level, and then work with our feathering. There we go. Fantastic. Let's hit OK. There we go. And then just turning this off and on. There's the before and after, making our subject just a little bit brighter. I think this looks really, really good. It's a fun, interesting project that we can do, basically bringing in our subject and a lot of different layers and having fun. This is a little bit just like distracting here on her face. I'm gonna show you one more cool tip. So let's make that invisible. Let's go back down to these layers and see, like, you know, hey, any of these layers that we did or did not like down there. Okay, let's go lower the opacity of this one. Okay, let's say we want to just make that effect a little bit less. Now, I made some changes down here. I'm gonna go to the very top. I'm gonna do a new layer. We're gonna go to image and then down to apply image. One more time, hit okay. Let's make that a smart object again. Now, instead of going into camera raw and applying all these filters and everything like this to the new version, check this out. Because this layer is a smart object too, all I have to do is hold Alt or Option and copy, click and drag the smart filters onto this new version of the file. There we go. And then all of the same adjustments that I had on this version are on the new version of that file as well. Again, Alt or Option, click and drag your smart filters. You have to have your layer be a smart object. Both layers have to be smart objects in order to do this. But if you do a lot of effects like your camera raw filter, and then you decide you want to make a change later down, all you have to do is a new apply image on the very top, Alt or Option, drag your smart filters from one layer to another one. And then here you're going to have the exact same camera raw filters that you can turn off and on at any point in time with a new version of your file. Alrighty, well, there's our before and the after. A lot of fun stuff we did with this image. I'm looking at it, I'm like, maybe we overdid this a little bit. This is a little bit like, you know, July 4th on crack, but we had fun. I think we had a really good time. Again, if you wanted to, at any point in time, like make this a lot more subtle, you could simply just go in and turn any of these layers off and on and change the settings at any point in time. Or if this one, you're like, this is cool, but I want to change the colors, you can click on this layer and you could go something like Control or Command L for your levels. You could simply just change your colors. You could go to your red channel and say, you know, make it a lot more red. You could go to your blue channel, say, make it a lot more blue or more yellow. You could do this sort of thing at any point in time. So just wanted to let you know, you're not stuck with Mardi Gras, you know, absolute craziness, but I thought this would just be a really fun way to end our series out, have a little bit of fun, get a little bit organic, and play around in Photoshop. You can download all of these sample images as well as this PSD right on PHLEARN.com totally for free. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed the entire process of this series. It's been absolutely fun. I can't believe it's been 6 years since we recorded the original series. Here we are going strong, and you are too. I'm proud of you. Thanks again, and I will PHLEARN you later. Bye, everyone.